Hello, everyone. This is Sandra, Success Mindset Coach, and I am very excited to present or bring back Odille Remmert, and this time with her significant other, husband, partner, and love partner, everything, right? Steve Remmert. They are both master mindset coaches, and they have created the Remmert Method. All right, welcome. So, yeah, excited to have you back.
It's lovely to be back, Sandra.
Yeah, lovely. So I'm really excited to talk to all of you, especially relationships, which is not a new topic, right? It's not a new topic. It's something that we all manage, or most of us do, whether you're actually in any kind of relationship. You know, they're just always different dynamics to that. So why don't you tell us, whoever wants to begin, how did you meet? How did you two meet?
Well, mine is the longest story, so I'll start with me quickly.
Yeah.
Basically, from what was happening in my world at the time, I had no intention. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I'd been on my own for quite a lot of years. I don't even know how many years, but it wasn't a priority for me. And I was just focused on my business. But I was visiting a friend in Idaho, and her mum said, so I'd come over to the US, to Oklahoma to do eutactics several times, eutactics training. And on one of those trips, I had a talk in Seattle, and then I went to Idaho to visit this friend. And we were sitting chatting one night with her mum, and we were just having a glass of wine, and the fire was on. It was lovely. And her mum said, "So what about relationships?" And I said, "Well, I'm divorced, and I'm not really that interested in anything else." And we got chatting, and her mum shared with me her story of how she met her husband. And she knew straight away this was the person, and it was a wonderful romantic story, and they'd been together ever since. And I thought, that's actually really nice. That must be lovely to be, to be in that situation. And then she said, "Well, you know what you should do? You need to write a list of everything that's important to you and put it on a silver platter and offer it up to God. And that's how you." So I said, well, I'd done something similar to that a few years before. I'd written a list and I'd just put it away in a drawer. And that's how I ended up in my previous relationship, which was a very long relationship, but it wasn't my soulmate. So we're still very good friends, but it wasn't really, it didn't work out that way. So so then she said, "Come, let's do it now." I was like, well, I didn't really feel like doing it, or I didn't feel I needed to do it. I wanted to do it, but we were just relaxing. So I thought, okay, fine. So she got out a pen and notepad, and she started interviewing me. So what do you find important? And she was making a list. But the best thing about it was she added a few of her own. I love it.
I guess.
And there were things where she'd say, "And he must such and such," and I was like, "Well, it's not
okay."
She's no, and she put it on. She was so sweet. Anyway, she gave it to me. It was a list of 34 points. I put it away in my bag, completely forgot about it. Now that was November 2016.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I went back to the UK, and then in February 2017, I came back to Oklahoma to attend another eutactics training. And it was a level 1, and I loved those training seminars so much. I was looking forward to it. I had no intention of meeting anyone. I was just going there to enjoy it. But the weird thing is, as I got on the plane, I picked up the flight magazine, and there was this weird sort of vision in my head, just a moment where I picked up the magazine and I had a flash of an image of my finger with a wedding ring on it. No engagement ring, just the wedding ring. And that was a weird thing, because I had no intention of getting married again. I thought, well, it'd be nice to be in a relationship with that, but I don't need to be married. But when that happened, I thought, oh, that was odd. And then I thought, well, actually, it may be nice to be married again. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not against it. Sounds nice. Anyway, got to Oklahoma, and I met Steve on the Saturday. And we got talking actually properly on the Monday evening at Chili's. My memory's really good. But the details.
Chili's in Oklahoma. All of us have been there with the training.
That's it. And there was a group of us at Chili's. And I was sitting next to Steve and we were talking, and the thought came into my head, that first conversation, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, which was really weird for me. So then the best thing is, so we had lunch together a few times during that week, most days, a couple of times, I think we had dinner once or twice. And then on the Thursday, this is the funniest bit, on the Thursday we went for lunch and he mentioned to me that he plays the banjo. I thought, well, that's nice, that's lovely. And as I went to the loo, and on my way to the loo, I remembered the list, because must be musically inclined was one of the ones that she added.
Oh, really?
I didn't care if the person was musically inclined or not. She went, no, he must be musically inclined. She put that on. So then I remembered the list. I got back to my hotel room, dug out, I didn't tell him about it, of course, dug out the list, and he had everything that I could have known at that stage about him that was important. He ticked those boxes already. And so then, you know how Robert usually arranges for everyone to go to Cowboys on the Friday?
Yes.
Of the seminar. So we were all going to go to Cowboys, and this is the funniest one, I think, because I said to Steve on the Thursday, you know, so are you going to Cowboys? And he said, well, Cowboy, not really that my thing, Cowboys things, you know, I'm not really, I can't remember how you put it, but he's like, Cowboys not really my thing. And so I said, oh, well, okay. It ended up, we did go together, but the best thing was on the Friday when we were on our way there, he said, you know, it's very strange because for a few months now, I've been seeing myself wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and that was one of the things that she put on the list, was he must look good in a cowboy outfit. Seriously. And I was inside, I was like, oh, look what I did.
So Steve, you were also at the training, is that?
Yep.
Okay, you were at the training as well. Yeah. So you
were
level one.
Yeah.
And I think similarly to Odille, you know, I was really into the training. You know, my intention was all about learning. You know, that I take my seminars very seriously.
Yeah, I do too. Very serious students, huh?
And I had been through a traditional psychotherapy master's degree. So, you know, it's like, you know, I'm in the learning mode. It's like, you know, I'm here for a seminar. This is serious stuff. I got my notebook, got my pens ready. Let's go.
Totally. Wonderful.
So yeah, the thought of meeting somebody that was not on the radar at the time.
Yeah, so. It usually isn't, you know. My story is similar as well, but that's for another time. Yeah. Isn't it interesting that when we are not looking for relationships, and when I say I was not looking for it, I mean, mine, of course, like all of us, come from a different background. We certainly just don't, you know, it's like, that is not, you know, my work has always been very important to me. It still is. And so, you know, being of service and just my own background and my education and everything. So I was really focused on that. And sometimes things happen, life happens, you know, and that's the way it is. And so you both have connected wonderfully, and here you are a few years later, and so forth. And so where are you currently living, though? You're in the States, right? Because that's...
Yes, we're in Central Illinois.
Yeah, Central Illinois. Okay. And are you from there, Steve?
Yep. Yeah, it's my family stomping ground. So we're living in Peoria.
Oh, okay.
Which is the home of Caterpillar Tractor Company.
Yes. My father worked for Caterpillar. He was a technician, which is so funny because he's always got the base. You know, every time he likes somebody, he'll go. He's 87, but he's very much was. They were very good to him, and he traveled actually. Even across, you know, in California, across the border, and taught and all that way back when. And so it's really cool. That's great. That's good to know. So tell me, what is the secret to your successful relationship?
So from my point of view, I think we both have this attitude that it's about taking responsibility for your own experience. So, you know, and it's what Robert teaches in Fast EFT and New Tactics as well, is that so there's two things. So one is taking responsibility. Actually, there's three things.
I told you, it's all about the lists.
Yeah. There's not one secret, is there, you guys? It's like a symphony of ingredients that are put together.
That's it.
Yeah.
So the one is, and for me, the most important one is taking responsibility for my own experience, regardless of what the other person is doing or who they are. And that is what gave me the confidence to jump into this so quickly, because we literally, that was all the time we spent together. And then on the Saturday, Steve drove back to Oklahoma. Steve drove back to Chicago. I stayed in Oklahoma and then went to Seattle, and I was due to go back to the UK, and we weren't going to see each other until the level 2 in June. And that was just too long as far as I was concerned. We were talking on the phone and emailing that, and I thought, I wonder if I could just change my ticket. So I postponed my ticket back to the UK and went to Chicago instead for 5 days. And this is having just met this person, which is very out of character for me. But the reason I could do that, the reason I felt confident to do that, is because I knew that I'm in control of my experience of whatever happens. So whoever people are, whatever circumstances, I knew that so even if he didn't turn out to be the person, you know, or whatever, I didn't, you know, confidence, all of that was all up to me. So that's the first thing, is taking responsibility for ourselves. The second thing for me that's very important is unconditional love. So that's how we live. And then the third one, of course, is changing the childhood references so that you're not recreating the same patterns.
And that's definitely highlight. And I know you, Odille, and I have talked about that, how that birthed the Remmert Method, birthed from actually Robert's work as well, you know, tactics and so forth. And we know that we go back to our childhood all the time to be able to make sure that we're cleaning everything up. So I don't want to speak a lot on that. I want to do a pause and go rewind just for a moment. And what, in a very succinct way, what is unconditional love? What does that mean to you?
Great question. So for me, what I've been teaching since 2012, I think it is that unconditional love it's not just an emotion. So people think of it as an emotion, but it's actually a state. So it's a physiological state, it's a chemical state in the body, it's an electromagnetic state, and it's a spiritual state as well, of course. But it's the most empowered state you can be in. So if you are coming from a place where you love yourself unconditionally, and then you're shining that light to everything around you, you're in the most empowered state. That's the most protection, and it's the most power you can have, because we can't control things outside ourselves, but we can control the state we are in. Yes. So that's, in a nutshell, that's it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, it's perfect. Steve, do you want to add something to that?
A little bit, I suppose, that I would say that it is, for me, stepping into mastery. It's stepping out of victimhood and into mastery. That if you can step into, I think it's our true nature. You know, unconditional love is our true nature. And if we can embody that, if we can step back into that, then we're not looking for something else to give us that sense of love, right? So the way that your mind works with the bullet points and the list, and I was just telling you that, you know, I'm seeing pictures and I'm hearing songs, you know, all I'm hearing right now is looking for love in all the wrong places. The song is playing in the background, and when we're in that place of victimhood, you know, we are looking outside of ourselves for something to provide that for us. And when you can live out of that state of unconditional love, it's like, I've got this relationship with me. Having what other relationships show up, that's the cherry on top. You know, that's the icing on the cake. I've already got the love inside.
Well, and I wholeheartedly agree, because this was a path that I also took way before tactics training, a concept. I come from a background of personal development. My mother was a very progressive thinker, and way back when it was not even called any of that, it was sort of like more self-help and things like that. And it's just something that I've always sought, to see what does that mean? What does it mean when somebody says to love yourself? And, we have all these sayings, love yourself first before you can love someone else. Well, I think loving ourselves is a lifelong journey, because I think there are aspects that we're unconscious of and that we don't see. And just like Robert says, you have your world, I have mine, we come together and we have two worlds. And so it's about adjustment and learning from each other what works, what doesn't, adjusting, compromising. I mean, I believe in all those things, and I consider myself a very flexible person. But Steve, definitely going to your thing, I think that that's probably why sometimes you do fall into new relationships, because you're not looking for it. I really like cared and loved myself a lot more in the last several years than I ever had before. Does that mean I was perfect? Does that mean that I don't beat myself up sometimes? Of course, right? But like you said, when you come from that place and just say, I know what my value is, I feel okay, I feel content, I feel fulfilled to be able to be who I am, and from that place, from that empowered place. And I think that many times, and I don't mean to marginalize men here, but I think women, and I've seen it in different communities and everything, it's like they're looking for love, right? Mm-hmm. But they're coming from a place of, I need a man, or I want a man to be able to feel fulfilled, and that's, or it could be men too. I'm not saying that men don't do that, but I think we're more infamous as women to be wanting that. And I think you don't have to be this extreme feminist either to just say, well, I don't need a man. It's just like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay without or with. And especially when you're over 50, I think, you don't want to play games. Like, I don't want to play games. I don't need to. I know who I am. I know what kind of woman I am for the most part. I'm willing to grow and be flexible. And sounds like you guys are more or less coming from that place as well. And that's probably why you're such a perfect match.
And something else I'm very aware of is that with the old references, references, mm-hmm. I would never have been attracted to Steve.
Right.
Because he wouldn't fit it in with the old patterns. So I was looking for somebody to do that dance with. But it was because I changed those references and combined with the unconditional love that I could then, that I found him attractive in the first place.
Yeah, the subconscious just wants to continue the old dance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
What was that? What was the, what were the belief systems? What was that homeostasis state that we grew up in childhood? What's a relationship supposed to look like? And it's like, I know. Because I did that dance, in other relationships. And it's like, wow, look at that. I found my mom. I found my dad. Isn't that great?
We always find mom and dad, don't we, somewhere along the way. And it's like, and it is what it is. But I think, Odille, both of you embrace this, but what you were saying is that, and I think that that's me too, is like, I'm not looking for someone to try to change or to change me. I want to change. It's only really through, it's kind of hard to explain, but I think maybe you can articulate this better. It's really interesting. I think a lot of people have the notion, and for some of you who are listening to this, if you think that, you can, it doesn't mean that you can't change your destiny. The dance we were talking about, we both come from, we all come from this background, but I think it's important to also remember that this is not about perfection, because like, I would consider myself a pretty healthy, emotionally healthy person. I've been told by many people that I'm, somewhat, at least, again, not perfect, but coming into something, it's like, it doesn't matter. You could really be empowered and centered and grounded, or whatever words you want to use, but that individual is going to pull from you certain things, certain traits there to help you look. And I'm sure the both of you experienced that. Yes?
Yeah, well, yes, but not in the way that I think I had always experienced before, and not in the way that I would have expected. So because we were both we were both using faster EFT, of course, when we so we were both working. I was working on myself. Steve was working on his self. So when we, as things came up, each of us automatically recognized it as my thing. So I remember, in fact, when we were in the UK, and so this is right in the beginning, the first time Steve came to the UK to visit, and I think you'd gone out with my sister to fetch some stuff. They would do a barbecue or whatever, and Steve came back, and I was feeling like he hadn't said hello to me. It's funny now, but I was feeling like he doesn't care, he doesn't love me, that kind of thing. But the difference is that in the past, I would have run away with that. I would have gone, oh yeah, and all the reasons, and and then probably spoken to him, and have I done something wrong or whatever. But because of what I knew, I recognized it immediately, so I could feel those feelings, and at the same time, I could recognize them and go, this has nothing to do with Steve. It doesn't even have anything to do with me. It's from childhood. And I went into a room. I didn't even mention, I resisted the urge to tell someone, right? Even my sister, I would normally have told her, I thought, there's no need to tell anybody. I know what I need to do, and I need to just do it. So I went into the room, my bedroom, and I was crying, and I was tapping and going, okay, that child, where in my childhood, I did all of that. I changed it. And I only told Steve about it much later as out of, as an interest thing because of what we do, so saying, I discovered this, but it had nothing to do with him. Whereas in the past, I would have seen it as he's made me feel this way. And we don't do that. And it's the same with you, right?
Yeah. And if you would have reacted that way, there in the past, it would have been the perfect setup for the dance.
Right.
It's like, let me try to fix it for you somehow, or we can go into that if you want to, but it's just a recognition that we grow up with different programs, and then as we're changing those, it's like
here's an opportunity to practice.
Right. Absolutely.
Totally. And I agree with you. I think the great thing about coming into this is really it's always about you. And I totally get what you're saying, the urge, right? Odille, the urge to sometimes, and one step back, two steps forward, you just learn and grow. But you're absolutely right. The tactics modality for me is really the best because nobody teaches you. And of course now you have your method, your way, but nobody teaches us really to go back into the past and rewrite those memories, because how do you do that? And nothing against talk therapy, but it's like they can teach you some coping skills or whatever, but if you still don't know how to manage the emotionality behind that, it's very difficult to change that. And so I'm forever grateful for this modality because it's changed so many other areas in my life, of course, and there's always more to change and more to grow, right? Definitely. So that's wonderful. I love that you both have this vision together as a couple. Do you have goals that you have together that you talk about?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we've been together pretty much 24/7. I mean, apart from, so there was an 8-week period.
Not just for COVID, quarantine, but
we were completely practiced for the whole quarantine.
Yeah, the lockdown thing is just, our life hasn't changed that much. But because, so there was an 8-week time between that 5 days in Chicago, and then I went back to the UK, and then Steve came over to the UK, and we both went to Greece for the Eutaptics level 2.
Oh, okay, great.
Do his level 2 there. So apart from that 8 weeks, we've been together pretty much, and I took a week when we got back to the US to do my level 4 in Oklahoma. And I went on my own for that, and then came back to Chicago. And then from then on, we've traveled together. We're always together pretty much. We live together, work together, obviously, all the time. So we have to have goals together, because that's, we are together all the time. But so talking, we don't sort of set aside specific time or anything like that. It's just conversation most of the time, right?
Because
Yeah.
you also work together, and how is that partnership? I mean, it
Oh,
looks great. You both look very, I mean, I've watched your videos, I'm subscribed to your channel, and I've been watching you guys for actually a long time now, and the dynamic between the two of you really really highlight, not saying that individually you're not dynamic, but I'm just really, as a couple, it's refreshing to see that the flow and the love and just the respect that you both have for each other, and the way you speak to each other and give each other your own the space to give each other the expertise that you both bring to the table, not that one is superior over the other. And so any thoughts or insights on that?
Wow. Yeah, well said. How do I add to
Statement
it?
in question all together, right?
I have something I can add,
Oh.
and I think the fact, we have a lot of similarity, and there's a lot of crossover in what we believe and the way we are, and there is a very strong mutual respect in addition to the love. But what's wonderful is that we also are very different in a lot of ways that help our business, that
Totally.
our business.
Yeah.
So I am very much words and lists. I can write, writing, speaking. So, and I love working with groups. Steve is more visual. So he's got, and I'm hopeless with visual. So I'll look at something and go, I think that looks nice. And then he'll change it. And I'll go, oh, I never even thought, my brain just doesn't work that way. So he's brilliant with all of that.
So you complement each other, in other words. You complement, where one perhaps lacks a little bit of something, the other comes in. And
right. And Steve does all our one-to-ones, and because he loves doing one-to-ones, I don't enjoy them, but I love working with groups. So what's wonderful is we're each doing not only what we're good at, but what we love as well. So we spend our days pretty much each doing the parts of the business that we each enjoy and are good at.
Right.
And it just happens to
I get that. It
happens to be that they, that we like different things.
Yeah, well, you have the same interests and everything. Steve?
Right.
No, I was going to say that I think that I've done enough other businesses. We've both done enough other, businesses, other careers, enough to know that what we like doing, what we don't like doing, what doesn't feel good. And we really, I know that we've said this out loud. I don't know if it's been one of those grand mission statements or anything, but I think we really do follow that notion that if it doesn't feel fun, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
That it really, we need to have that level. And if it's like, man, I'm just not liking doing this right now, I'll either stop and come back to it when it feels good, or I just let it go because it's not resonating with me on that level. Yeah. So that's what seems to be.
It sounds to me also like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but the way I'm hearing it is that there is a willingness to compromise and be flexible within, and to respect each other's frame of mind or where you're coming from. And maybe, I'm sure, tap or do whatever inner work that you do, but it sounds almost, Steve, like you're saying, it just, because there's a lot of couples where there is this thing, it's like, no, it's got to be my way, and there's this constant arguing. And I know that I've been in a relationship before that was very much like that, and it was a business relation, and it was very, it was exhausting, and you reach a point where it's no fun for the other person to constantly be saying, I give up.
Yes.
Because then your own creativity is thwarted.
Right.
And then you feel right. But also at the time I didn't have the tactics or the tapping, right? But it just sounds like you guys are very much, you love each other enough to say, maybe I don't know the answer to this specific thing, and I'm willing to trust you on that one, and vice versa. And I'm seeing Steve kind of go touch his beard, and is that kind of, where are you, Steve? What are you thinking?
I'm reminded, I don't want to get off topic, but I'm reminded that, women, typically, they've got all these wonderful ideas, and it's like somebody will ask the man, so about it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, there, that space underneath the stove. And it's like, no.
The mind has wandered off.
Yeah, I love it. I love that little.
No, I would agree with that. And I'm kicking myself a little bit for, getting us off the track there. But in reference to compromise, yeah, I would say that it was, it is something that just happens very naturally.
Yeah, it's for me. I don't think I can think of anything I've compromised on as such that feels like a compromise. So for me, I care. Right at the front of my head is love, and I genuinely care about how, Steve and his feelings and how he is. So whereas in the past, what was right at the front of my head was my hurt or my betrayal, or I don't feel, that kind of thing, my fear. Whereas now that's no longer there. It's about love first. And I know I've said this before, anything to do with the business or anything else in life is secondary. The fact that we're together and the love between us and the respect between us, that is the very top priority. Yes. And if anything is going to knock that off, then that's not worth doing, saying, mentioning, worrying about. And I think it's choosing your perspective. Thank you. In other words, thinking twice and going, oh, I need to get or this should be this way, and then going, okay, hold on a second, take a step back and let me intentionally say, what do you think? And also, I think we do each, like, I completely trust Steve's eye and his input and opinion of anything visual and well, everything really, but especially anything visual. And so there've been times where I thought, oh, but I thought it would look better that way. And if that's the case, I'll actually say to him, I'm going to go with what you say because I trust you, but I thought it might look better this way. And then he'll maybe say, well, it's because of this, that, and the other. I go, oh, okay. So it's just talking in a very respectful way, but natural as well, right?
Well, it seems like it's very natural for the both of you. It sounds like it's not, and I do like the fact about the compromise when you do come from a place of love and you respect and you do care about the other person's opinion and expertise, because not one individual can be an expert in everything, right? Yeah. And so I think that that's really, but I also must say, without trying to not sound fatalistic, but you both are very fortunate because that's not the majority. I mean, a lot of people do not have, they feel like they have to compromise, and there is this tension sometimes between two people. And, like I always say to myself, and this has been with in any relationship, it's like, you know what, you can do this, you can do that, maybe 8 out of 10 things. I'm just giving an example because it doesn't bother me, right? I don't need to be this, and that. I don't need to have, whatever that means, right? But when I do say something, you'll hear it loud and clear. And at that point, I want to be respected and sort of received by that because I am a very flexible person. And so, but again, I think you two are very much, it just feels and sounds like you both are just very respectful of each other. And there's not this major, what we would call out in the world, I know Robert doesn't like the word ego, but if you were going to put that word, inject that word, there's not a lot, which is fabulous in a relationship. There's not this ego thing going on, which causes conflict in relationships.
Right. And I think another thing too that I've certainly got in the front of my mind, I think you probably have as well. And I think that's really empowering as far as that kind of thing goes, as far as respect goes and all of that, is that I decide if I feel respected or not.
Yeah, of course.
So regardless of what Steve says and does, I'm, like you say, we're lucky. We really are lucky, and I appreciate that. But I'm also aware that if there was anything, I would address that in me, and I go, because I don't want to be at the mercy of someone else So that, which is one of the reasons for, that confidence in getting into a relationship. So I think that's important to have as well.
Wonderful. Yeah. And you talked about use the word trust, which is a word, which is actually, I want to introduce that too. And so Steve, let's start with you if I'm not putting you on the spot, and then we'll go to Odille. What is trust to you? What does trust mean to you? In the context of a relationship.
I know that it would have been, different, a few years ago. I think having taken the time and doing all the work, changing up the programs that are back there, trust feels different now. Trust feels, it's more like I trust myself. It's coming from inside. So it's like, I've got this, it's not like I'm turning over my power to somebody else, or it's not like I'm, waiting for something to happen, or it's like, can I trust this person? It's like, I got this inside. It doesn't matter what happens out here. Whatever's going on out there is their stuff, so I've got this inside. So I don't know if that helps in.
It does. It really helps. I like, again, we're all the three of us on the same page as far as it begins with us, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. And then it begins with us as maybe difficult and whatever abstract at times that concept is. Yeah. Thank you. What about you, Odille?
So for me, for a long time, I think a couple of years before I met Steve already, my attitude for trust has been, I don't need to trust anyone or anything else, as long as I need to trust myself, because if I trust myself, I know that I'm not going to let anything bad happen to me. So that was my attitude back then. What I then added to it when I learned Fast EFT is, as long as I make sure I change those references. So just trusting I'm getting waves of goosebumps as I'm saying this, but just trusting my instinct is what I thought before. As long as I trust myself, trust my own instinct in that. But of course, the problem is that you've got all those references running on, who knows what programs, or running who knows what programs. And so as long as you have changed the references to match what you want, and you trust yourself, then you're not going to create anything bad for yourself. So it doesn't matter. So in other words, somebody does something that breaks your trust or anything like that, it's only up to you, and your judgment will be affected.
Absolutely.
You'll go, something doesn't feel quite right here. I don't think we'll do that.
Yes.
And that's your judgment. That's trusting yourself rather than other people.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I love the both concepts that, again, are aligned with that as well. And it's always coming back to the self. It's always the, doing the inner work, and we can't do it for other people. And it's just, it is what it is. But
it's so empowering, that, because it means you're not at the mercy of anyone else, and you don't have to wait for anyone else. You're holding the remote control.
Absolutely.
So it really is the end of victimhood.
Yeah.
Once you can operate from that place, it's like, when those situations, when those people come into my life or my existence, or something that's come up where there's some bit of a trigger, it's like, it used to be, I could go off on a 2-day, 2-week, 2-year bender of being depressed, upset, angry about something. And now it's like, oh, yay. Yeah. Here's another thing that showed up in my life right now that I can continue to, here's a little, it's like, there's still something there. Okay, I've got this. So it's a completely different, reaction to what's going on.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm going to ask a question that is a little bit more individual towards Steve, because I'm very attracted to ask you this question. And this is because I do work a lot with different men on intimacy issues as well. And it's part of what I do. And and maybe we'll do even another video on this, just to get also a woman's perspective and so forth. But, we do not see or hear often enough about men doing their inner work. We see a lot of gurus out there. We see a lot of, being a little sarcastic here, but we do, we have famous people, no names mentioned, of course, that are out there, whatever, doing their thing. And of course, we can't judge that because we don't know their personal life or private life, that is. But there are a lot of, we see men on this level, right? We see them, authors and so forth. But in everyday life, I know that the men that I work with are suffering a lot of times. And also personal development is really quite new, or a new way of being, a new way of walking in life as a man, or having the sacred, as I call the sacred masculine, that has nothing to do with gender, just being ownership of that. How do you see your cohorts, and other men and personal development struggling when you seem to be, and I don't live with you, Odille can testify to this, but you seem to be a balanced man who really respects women, who respects himself, who has integrity, who honors his woman, and you honor yourself. How have you, what is the decision that you've made? What's the promise or vow to yourself? I know a lot of questions there, huh? All rolled up in one. So tell us how you see your cohorts. Let's start with that one. How do you see your male counterparts that are not in personal development?
That are not in personal development.
And want to grow or want to be in.
Yeah, I think I would probably say that my experience has been, and because I do feel like in a smaller club right now, or, there's not as many of us in there, or I have to go looking, a little bit more. I just see that the society, the cultures that we've been reared in, whether they're countries or religious or whatever, has kind of fostered, this dysfunctional, this dysfunctional raising of men. In a lot of ways, we've been cut off from that, masculine power, that divine masculine, whatever word you use there was like, yeah, that resonates. Yeah. I get that.
Sacred. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So that sacred masculine. So I think that I've been on a many-year journey, and it's not just, within the last 3 or 4 years, but I began that journey earlier on in my life. And even though I didn't necessarily know what I was looking for, I promised myself at that point,
yes,
authenticity. That word is what I hung on to. It's like, that's the end destination. I just want to know that sense of true nature, authenticity. That has to be the underlying things. And there's been a lot of detours and ups and downs along the way. But what I feel like is having arrived at a point on the mountain where there's a bit of a plateau, and I get that chance to take in the vista and go, you know what, I may not be 100% there yet, but it feels really good to be in this place of like, wow, I'm getting there. I've really gotten to that place of feeling that I can really, I've really got that sense of of authenticity. And it's like, I know that I didn't have that. I know that the culture didn't give me that. There wasn't those things that maybe native societies or earlier groups of people engendered in young boys and men. And I feel like I've had to, in some ways, be my own teacher. And thankfully, I've had other teachers along the way that have kind of added to that. But it's been, a many-year journey of authenticity, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because I know women are more communicative, and it's not just history. I think it's sort of built into the way we think and all those things. And I know that men can sometimes be less communicative and so forth. But it's a very interesting subject to me to talk about, this, especially with men, because I do think, like I said, there's a lot of men that are silently suffering, and they don't. And there is a great percentage, actually, believe it or not, of men who in relationships that are actually abused. And we don't talk about it because it's not the narrative, right? It's not the narrative. So But yeah, thank you for indulging me in that question. And I wanted to get your perspective, but we'll definitely do, if you're open to that, I would love to be able to have another conversation because I think it's really important that we start dialoguing about these things that are somewhat taboo or uncomfortable or not part of the narrative. We need to hear different perspectives. Because women ourselves don't always behave, right? You know, there's all kinds of, it's not a gender thing, right? And so, yeah. So let me ask you, what suggestion would you give a person who is actually looking for a relationship? What is something that you would suggest?
So I would say 4 things based on my own. Sorry.
4 things, 3 things. Here's your list. I love it.
I told you her brain thinks in lists. And
I love it. It's great. It keeps me on track.
Well, it's kind of 4 steps is the way I see it. And I don't know if they're in order of priority, but certainly the first one is the most important one, and that is taking responsibility. So, you know, if I want to if I'm looking for a relationship and I want to be in a good one, the first thing is I want to take responsibility for me. And you can make a list like I did of, you know, everything you want in a
criteria. Yeah.
Right. Things that are important to you, but you don't have to. You know, Steve, you didn't make a list, right? Yeah. So, so you can do that, and then I would say become who you want to attract. So things that are important to you, you know, I must have a sense of humor. Check your own sense of humor. Must treat me with respect. Make sure you're treating yourself with respect.
And what that means to you, because it means different.
Right. It means exactly. So become the person you want to attract, and keep your focus on that, because while you're keeping your focus on that, you're attracting rather than trying to look for something outside. And then that's how we keep ending up in patterns, because we're looking and we're picking up the same patterns unconsciously. But if you're focused on becoming, then you're attracting. And so that's that one. And then the second one, I would say unconditional love. Absolutely. So filling yourself with unconditional love for yourself, and then allowing that to overflow and practicing being in that state. Because again, that will attract the kind of people that will resonate with that. And then the third one, of course, is changing the childhood references. So making sure that the childhood references that you have, the new childhood references, match whatever you want to be living now. So that your parents were in love and had the type of relationship you want now, that you grew up with that, with respect, the affection, the attention, whatever it is you want in a relationship now, that your parents gave that to you as when you were a child, that you were surrounded. So the atmosphere of it is the same in your childhood in your new childhood as it is that you're aiming for. And then finally, that get on with doing what you love. Having done all that, put it away, forget about it, forget about finding someone, and follow what feels fun, follow what you're passionate about, what you love, because then you're going to end up meeting your soulmate in an environment where you're with people who are passionate about the same things, who love the same things, who have a sense of fun, depending on what that is, which is of course what happened with us, because we were both at this seminar because that's what we were passionate about, what we loved. So, you know, whether it's a photography club or a, you know, running club or whatever, you're going to end up with those kind of people. So I think those 4 pieces are what I would recommend. You got one?
Just keeping you on track.
Yeah. You know, it's like when you were a kid, you know, it's like you're looking at, wow, she just built that wonderful castle out of Legos, and I'm sitting here with my 2 or 3 pieces.
That's cute.
No, but I would say, I would just, for myself, it's like have a relationship with yourself. Can you develop a love relationship with yourself? And it's like, and I know that maybe that's an uncomfortable thing from a male perspective, or, you know, trying to imagine. I know that I probably spent 40 years of my life not being able to have a love relationship with myself. I couldn't even look in the mirror, you know, because I had so much self-loathing and disgust. It's like, now it all seems very silly, you know, it all seems very simplistic now, but it's like, how the heck did I expect to have a relationship with somebody else if I didn't even like the guy I was looking at in the mirror? You know, so it's like, you really do need to make sure that you've got that relationship first, because if you've got that, then it just naturally is going to happen.
That's wonderful. That's really great. And I think, you know, again, what you guys say is full of wisdom, and I completely agree. And it's, again, who's ever watching, it's not about being perfect. It's not like you have to, because again, to arrive to a certain place. But I do think you're absolutely right about, Odille, about going back and making sure that it matches. And this is really the law of attraction, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, and it's, so anyway, it's kind of part of it. What about people that are already in a relationship that maybe might be finding themselves struggling, or whatever that means to them in their relationship? What would you, what is a suggestion or two?
So I think for me, I would say, again, it's a similar thing. So like Steve said, develop the relationship with yourself. And I would say one of the things you can do is put that person or your relationship with that person in your mind, not literally, but pin it for the moment. Go, so whatever triggers you about them, whatever, go, I'll come back to it. Let me first sort myself out. And then this may or may not be an issue that needs addressing. But right now, address your own references, change them, focus on everything that's inside you. And one of the tips I give people to help, because it's very difficult if you're living with the person and sort yourself out, that can be really hard because of course you're being triggered all the time. So one of the little tricks that I teach that can help is to imagine that that person is either not well in the head. So you know, because what happens is it switches from triggered to compassion. So if you think that this person, you know, they're a wonderful person, but they've got something wrong with them now, and then you can.
It almost sounds counterintuitive to what we have. No, but I understand your point. Yeah.
Because then it's so, and it helps so much. So if they say the same things they used to say that used to trigger you, if you imagine they're accusing you of being Elvis or an alien, that completely switches that around, and you either find it funny or just like, oh, poor thing, you know.
Exactly.
And that will bring down the stress chemicals. Number one, and then the other option you can use both. I've used both in the past. Is imagine that they're a character in a sitcom.
Oh, wow.
If they weren't doing this, whatever they're doing, it wouldn't be funny. It wouldn't be part of, you know, so for example, Friends wouldn't be the same if Ross wasn't anal, right? I mean, it wouldn't be funny. It wouldn't be the same character. So you can trick yourself into that in order to get past those triggers, keep the stress chemicals down long enough to change the references. So that then you that's the long, you still need to change the references, but this is a kind of coping skill in the meantime to help you get there.
Beautiful.
I think that one little thing that I might add, that it may be difficult, you know, to get started with in the interim, but especially, and I think that we're probably kind of talking that, you know, people in relationships right now. Well, I was going to say if they were in some kind of a conflictual relationship, but I think that this really works for any relationship. But especially if you're not in that place of owning where you're at right now. So if you're still operating out of those old programs, where you can begin is to just begin to recognize that each of you in this relationship, whether it's a marriage relationship or a work relationship, you know, we're both coming from our own programs here, and we're both probably operating out of a place of fear. So maybe the first question is something that's geared around, what one little thing can I do in the moment that will help you feel just a little bit better right now? You know, so whatever that is, you know, is there something that I can do right now that would help you feel just a little bit safer around me? You know, and I think that we're, you know.
I love that. I absolutely, and you know what, that touches my heart, because that to me is just, instead of being triggered, you know, like in the past relationship I had, it was like anytime there was some kind of fear or any kind of whatever, it was like then, you know, the other person would just, you know, and it was like this for a long time, for years for me. And I couldn't, and it was just to the point where it's like, can you just, it was like, I even requested that, can you just give me a moment? I just need, is there any forgiveness in that moment? To just, if you feel vulnerable, to be able to say, what can I do? But like you said, Steve, it's just depending, another world, another program, and sometimes we can't do that. But that was then. Now I know the difference. Now I know it's like I'm going to come within myself and do the work. And before, you know, when you, like, you're into therapy and stuff like that, they tell you, you know, you have all these like timeouts, or you have all these things, and you're going like, that doesn't really work at the end of the day. And so, but anyway, the point I was trying to make is, I love what you said, is like, to me, that just really, it's like, is there anything I can do, or ask that question for you to feel, you know, and that absolutely lets the guard down, doesn't it?
Yes.
And it also,
Totally.
it allows you to stand, I think, you know, the Brene Brown stuff, it allows you to stand in your vulnerability, but it's also an empowered position.
Yeah.
It allows you to act from that place of empowerment. It's like, my vulnerability is my empowerment, and what can I do? And in that moment, I think it does start to break the shields a little bit.
Barrier, yeah.
Maybe the other person responds, maybe they don't, but I think that probably the response is going to be, especially if you're in a conflictual relationship, that this isn't the usual dance.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing the rumba for so long,
Yes.
and all of a sudden you're introducing a polka step, and it's like, this doesn't feel natural anymore. And it might just be enough that they might go, wow, that feels really great. What can I do? What can I do that would help you feel? Mm-hmm. You know, and then if you start taking up that dance together.
But don't expect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very importantly. So the idea is saying that, but without expecting anything in return. I think that's really important.
And that actually, and I will inject that I've actually done that without the expectation. And I will say that it's a vulnerable moment.
Yes.
Isn't it? To even ask to be on the other side, and even if you know, like if another person's, and to be able to hold that space and say, and not have it returned, it's a very lonely space in a way. But then as I started to practice that, it was like I started to realize that it's not my problem. It's not it. There's nothing to take personally, because the trigger is not coming from me. The trigger's coming from the other individual. And this could be, and I'm not speaking just in an intimate relationship, sexual lover relationship, but also this extends to friendships and stuff, where it's like, you know, and I've done that so many times. What can I do, you know, or whatever, like what Steve was saying, and it has not been reciprocated. And it's like, I just let it go, and I'll do my own tapping. And it's like, I'm proud of myself for at least putting myself there and allowing that person to be, and then they'll come back. It's always been, not always, but for the most part, the people who I do have significant relationships with that are meaningful and respectful, we've always been able to say, you know, they've actually thanked me. Thank you for holding that moment, asking the question and holding that space for me.
Wonderful. Yes. And you're spot on. And I think also another thing that helps, and I know Steve's idea or technique, is to see the other person as a 5 or 6 year old. And that helps hugely, because then you've got compassion again, rather than
love it.
and intolerance, or, you know, love that.
Yeah,
I've kind of practiced that. I've heard people say that kind of, you know, when people are even at the grocery store and they're like ticked off, and you can see them, just imagine that they were all children at one point. So I get the concept, and I'd love those suggestions, the cartoon character or the sitcom character, something to just be able to diffuse or diffract maybe what's going on, and always look at ourselves. And I love, I don't know if you've ever heard of the British philosopher Richard Rudd. He's a contemporary philosopher. He's created the Gene Keys, which I am a fan of. And he says, just like Robert does, you know, when you're in a relationship, and so many times when there is conflict or something, you know, we all want to run away, right? We do. I mean, or most of us do. Just it's not working, da da da, or whatever. Or some people go from one relationship to another. And so Richard Rudd always speaks about, you know, really doing that inner work. And as long as someone isn't physically beating you up, right? Not even if it feels like there's like whatever, because abuse means different things, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Unless you're not in actually danger, physical danger, stay in that relationship and work through your things, work through it. And I know that Robert also suggests this as well, because there really is something beautiful that comes out of that. And either the relationship then each go their own way, where you've been able to grow, whatever, or the relationship becomes stronger.
I would add a caveat to that, and I would say the most important part, whether you stay or leave, the most important part is to know that if you leave, you take whatever it is with you, and that's okay too. So if you go, you know what, I know that I'm creating the, or I know that I need to stay and sort it out, but I just can't. It triggers me too much, or I'm too upset.
No, and I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Then leave, but with the knowledge that okay, so I'm going to create it again because it's a pattern, and so I still need to do the work on myself, and then I'll spot it as soon as it comes up, and I can deal with it then. I think to say, yeah.
No, I totally agree. And I guess I was just sort of addressing people who are going from one thing and in that, like you said, Steve, the victim mindset, right? And that is really the most disempowering place to be, is the victim. You're always the victim. Everybody else is abusing you. This isn't good. And some people who even know about patterns or the concept of the work that we do, yet still haven't arrived yet again. And it's a practice. Like you said, there's not a right or wrong. However, if you are complaining about not having a relationship, and you have to stop and just be humble and just say, what is it that's holding me back from really creating the relationship? And it could be obviously a plethora of things that are happening. So you guys are like fabulous. This has been really, really a joy, and I would continue more and more, but I know we've probably been at the hour. I would love to do this again. And so anyway, Steve, I really appreciate your presence. I think it's important to have a male opinion and epiphany and insights and experience and humility. And thank you very much. I feel you very, very balanced and willing to speak about things of this nature. So thank you very much. And Odille, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will be definitely chatting soon. And I appreciate it. If you have any comments, all my viewers, I'm going to be putting the Remmert's information below, and please welcome any comments or questions, and we will address them for you. In the meantime, love yourselves, and we will talk soon. Peace. Take care.